Great. Well, Noelle, is it okay if I go ahead and get started?
Absolutely.
Beautiful. All right, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen really quickly. All right, can y'all see this slide that says Hope College on it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, first off, thanks so much to everybody who's here in this really weird virtual space that we find ourselves in. It's funny. I feel like every day it feels less and less weird. It feels more like the norm. But hopefully, you know, we're getting to the tail end of things. But so glad that you're here. Also, want to sympathize with my seniors on the call. I know that this is probably not how you anticipated your senior year going. This probably wasn't how you anticipated your summer before senior year going. So I am genuinely sorry about that. But hopefully, as we talk about college and these next steps, this gives you something really exciting to look forward to. So to go ahead and get us started, I just want to quickly introduce myself. So my name is Skyler. I am a 2013 graduate of Hope and currently serve as the Associate Director of Recruitment in the admissions office at Hope. I'm regionally based, so I actually live in the Chicagoland area. So just like you all, I'm experiencing this rainy, cloudy, gross weather today. But I've worked in higher ed recruitment for the past 7 going on 8 years. So I've been in this field for a while now. A couple other things about me. I have 2 dogs, Mello and Arequipe. I say this right off the bat because it's very possible you could hear them throughout this presentation. They like to wrestle and play with squeak toys, so I apologize in advance. Another fun fact about me, I love the NBA. I love running, so if you want to shoot the breeze about that later, always happy to do that. Okay, so I would love, Sarah and Lorena, if we could just start by chatting a little bit. And since it's just a handful of us, we don't necessarily have to use the chat box, but I'm curious what you all have been watching during quarantine and what is your favorite thing that you've watched on TV during this COVID era. I can go first. I started watching Lost, which is like the perfect COVID show, I feel like, because the show never ends. There's like 1 million seasons and 1 million episodes. I still haven't finished it yet, but that's been what I've been binge watching.
I can go next. I haven't really been watching like Netflix or any of like those, but especially during the beginning of quarantine, my family was watching a lot of old home videos of when we were really little. So that was like probably my favorite thing to watch, just seeing us like scurrying around and stuff. So yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's really cool. Sarah, what about you? You've been watching anything fun on TV?
Yeah, I've kind of been just watching YouTube most of the time. I don't know if you heard what game theory is.
I don't think I know what that is.
Okay, it's kind of like a it's a YouTuber who does a lot of theories on like games and stuff, or sometimes like on shows, and it's pretty interesting for me. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll have to check it out. Game theory on YouTube. Nice. Awesome. Noelle, you watching anything fun on TV right now? And I think I'll unmute you here.
Ozark on Netflix.
Yes.
Kind of creepy. And Magic for Humans.
Okay, I don't know that one. Definitely know Ozark though. That's one of my favorite shows too.
Yeah, Magic for Humans, definitely more family friendly.
Okay, good to know. When I'm hanging out with my parents, that's the one I'll put on instead of Ozark. Nice. All right, I got one more question for y'all. Is there any, Sarah, Lorena, is there any question that's like really lingering on your mind right now? Maybe it's about Hope specifically. Maybe it's just about this process in general. Maybe it's about what this process looks like with COVID. Any question that you're hoping gets answered during this presentation. And if not, that's okay too.
As of right now, I don't have any questions, but I'm sure something will come up during the presentation if I have anything.
Perfect. Anything
Me
for you,
too.
Sarah?
Same thing with me.
Beautiful. All right, sounds good. And I'm just curious. So, Lorena, I know you're a senior. Sarah, are you also a senior this year?
I'm a junior, actually.
Junior this year. Okay, cool. And have either of you had a chance to visit campus before?
No.
No, I haven't.
Awesome. All right, great. Well, we got a lot to talk about then. That's great. I'll reiterate this at the end of the presentation as well too. But just so you know, we've got a full, robust offering of virtual visit opportunities, including even tomorrow we're doing a virtual, online open house. So interactive opportunity to hear from different academic departments, student panel, go on a virtual tour live with a tour guide, all of that right from home. And then we are also offering a limited number of on-campus visit experiences with all of the appropriate safety guidelines. So hopefully in some capacity, we'll get you seeing campus here in the near future. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and jump right in quickly just with an overview. So we'll talk a little bit about academics. I'm going to kind of go through a handful of different things here. Transition into talking about student life. I'll touch on, traditions, athletics, social clubs, that kind of thing, but then also like the faith dimension of hope, and then some of our safe and significant spaces that we have on campus. And then I'm going to wrap up by doing a quick admissions overview, talk to you a little bit about some of the policy changes that are taking place this year, and all that good stuff. At any point, if I'm talking too much or if you have a question, feel free to jump in. I know it's a little tough with the Zoom feature. If I'm missing you, feel free to drop something in the chat. I've got that open as well. Certainly want to make sure I'm answering all your questions as we go. All right, so to get us started, academics. So Hope College is a small private liberal arts college. So what does that mean to be a liberal arts institution? When I talk about it, I like to use this metaphor of having these buckets when you're on campus, right? We're all about building a well-rounded student. And so when you're at Hope, you're going to take some classes that are going to fill up different buckets that ultimately are going to help with that mission, right? So when you apply to Hope, we actually look at all students coming in as being undecided. Even if you're like, Skyler, I for sure want to study English. I have every confidence that that's going to happen, but we also know things change, right? When I started at Hope, I thought I was going to be an elementary school teacher. None of you are 6 years old, so clearly I went a different route. We know things change, right? And we want to give you some time to get your feet wet, to try some different things before you have to lock into an academic major. And that doesn't mean you can't start taking classes in those areas. You certainly can. It just means that you don't have to prescribe to any one major right away. Once you do, though, once you start taking these major courses, that's what's going to fill up your first academic bucket. In your second bucket, you're going to have what we call liberal arts requirements. And these are not prescriptive classes that you have to take. So it's not like every student takes calculus, for example, or every student has to check these specific boxes. But rather, you've got these categories with options to choose from to fulfill those requirements. So I'll give you an example. I was an English major at Hope, math and science, not necessarily my jam. So for my quantitative math requirement, I took a class called Understanding Your Quantitative World, which was like a very practical approach to how math plays out in your daily life. For my science lab class, I took a class called Science and Technology in Your Everyday Life, which was honestly one of my favorite classes. I wrote a paper on how a Keurig works, and I actually got to take apart a car engine and put it back together. If you knew me at all, you would be incredibly impressed by the fact that I was not only able to take the car engine apart, but I got it back together too. So I think those are cool examples to say that there's a lot of fun options and some really unique, cool things that you can do to fulfill these requirements. Then in your last bucket, you're going to have these electives. So these are opportunities to take courses maybe in an area that you've always been interested in. Maybe it's the opportunity to pick up a second major or a minor. We have a lot of students that are pursuing multiple academic interests during their time at Hope. But I really feel like the beauty of being at a liberal arts institution is that you don't have to sacrifice. This is a place where you can continue to pursue the things that you love at a high level. I was an English major at Hope, like I told you, but if you ask most students, they probably would have thought I was either a music or a theater major because of the amount of music and theater classes that I took, all as a non-major. Hope was a place where I didn't have to sacrifice those things that I was passionate about, and I think that's a pretty neat thing. I think there's also some benefits to being at a smaller institution. So we've got 3,200 students on campus, average class size 20 to 25 students, but truthfully, as you work your way up the major, that's gonna even get smaller than that. During my time at Hope, my largest class was that science and technology class in your everyday life. It was about 50 students. And then for half of the classes we had, we would break that in half. For the lab portion, it'd be like 25 students. But that was my biggest class. My smallest class was about 4 students. It was an acting class. So I think that shows the wide breadth, and most of those courses are gonna fall somewhere in the middle. 11-to-1 student to faculty ratio. This is a place where you're gonna be known. And I think that's a significant thing. I always tell students, if you're looking for a place where you can skip out on class and no one's going to notice, this might not be the best fit for you, because your professors are going to know who you are. They're going to know you by name. These are people you're going to build relationships with. Every professor on campus is required to hold office hours, but I'll be honest with you, I couldn't tell you when one of my professors' office hours were on campus. And it's not because of the fact that I didn't take advantage of it. It's because if I ever had an issue or a problem in class, I would just shoot them a quick email, or I'd just stop by and they'd be like, sure, come in, let's talk about this. These are professors who have committed to the undergraduate experience. They want to get to know you. They want to get involved. They want to build relationships. And I think that really enhances the learning experience. We have over 90 majors, minors, pre-professional programs. So I think that's another thing I like to make sure that I highlight. This isn't a place where you have to sacrifice academic opportunity. I'll be honest with you, I previously worked for another institution, a school that's historically been ranked in the top 10 colleges and universities, highly selective institution. And I mention this because what I found so fascinating between my time at my alma mater, Hope College, and then my time at this other institution is that a lot of the opportunities that are available to students are the same. For example, undergraduate research. This is a really big piece to what we do at Hope, and this extends beyond just the sciences. We have more dollars per student for undergraduate research than this top tier research institution that I used to be at. This is why we consistently are ranked in the top 20 for undergraduate research opportunities in the country. And we're one of the few schools like us that fall into that list. This isn't a place where you're gonna have to sacrifice academic prestige. On the other side of the spectrum, nationally accredited in all of the arts, consistently ranked in the top 5 for teacher preparation programs in the state of Michigan. So really strong, vibrant, wide breadth of great academic programs. Another piece that I think is distinctive to the academic experience is this idea of experiential learning. So being able to take your learning out of the classroom and doing, like we talked about, research or study abroad or an internship. I got listed on this slide a handful of the study abroad opportunities that are available. I won't go too in depth to this. I know that every school has study abroad. Every school is talking about how great their study abroad programs are. But one thing I think is cool about Hope is that we also have these 1-month experiences as well too. So certainly go away for a full semester if you can, but you've also got these 1-month opportunities. This is what I took advantage of. I did a June term in Liverpool, England, and this is when I was actually still in the education program at Hope. So I was able to do a field placement at John Lennon's old high school. Sarah, Lorena, do you know who John Lennon is? Yes, I'm getting some nods. Yes, Beatles, very cool. So awesome experience. One of the best trips I've ever taken in my life. But then I also did a May term on the Rosebud Indian Reservation in South Dakota. So 2 very different experiences. Again, I was working in a school system there, doing some experiential learning. I think those highlight the wide breadth of opportunity that's available for you to go off campus. And then also professional experiences too, whether that's in Holland. We have a robust career and calling center that sets you up with internship opportunities that starts talking about career preparation from day one, but also these opportunities to go off campus through like the Chicago semester to do an internship in the city of Chicago, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, New York. So tons of opportunities to get off of Hope's campus as well too. All right, so I'm going to transition out of academics. Before I do though, any questions that this has sparked in terms of the academic experience at Hope?
Yeah, I have a question. How many, I don't know if you're able to say, but how many countries do you guys do study abroad programs to?
I'm sorry, you cut out just a little bit. Can you ask me that one more time?
Oh, sorry. How many countries do you guys do your study abroad programs with?
Ooh, that's a great question. Man, truthfully, I don't know the total number of countries off the top of my head. I will follow up with you on that though to let you know. It's quite a few though. I mean, you can see a pretty robust list on this slide, but that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. You can also go to our off-campus study website, and it has a more robust list of our offerings. But pretty much you name it, you can go there with few exceptions. That's a great question. Yeah, I should know that, but I don't know it off the top of my head. Anything else on academics before we transition into a different topic? All right, so another thing I want to talk about is student life at campus, and this plays out in a few different ways. I'm going to touch a little bit on the faith component of Hope, a little bit on safe and significant spaces at Hope, and then some traditions, athletics, student groups, that kind of thing. So first off, faith. We are affiliated with the Reformed Church in America, which is a small Protestant denomination, but we're not governed by the Reformed Church in America. So all of our faith experiences are non-denominational. And the big thing I want to hit home about this is wherever you fall on the spectrum in terms of your interest level and exploring this in college, you're going to find a home at Hope. This is not a prescriptive environment. It is certainly more of an opportunity than an obligation. So for example, you don't have to sign a statement of faith when you come to Hope. There's no mandatory chapel, nothing like that. But if you are looking for this, you're going to find it in a lot of ways on campus. So for example, our chapel services, we have them 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then a longer service on Sunday evening. Not required, but we average close to 1,500 students in attendance at chapel. Pretty cool to know that all those students standing room only are there because they want to be there, not because they have to be there. On the other side of that, like we talked about, there are 3,200 students at Hope. So 1,500 in attendance, a big chunk that aren't in attendance. That's okay. I think you have students who come and the faith dimension is a big deciding factor for them because there are so many ways to get plugged into that. So many ways to grow if that's what you're looking for. I think you have students who come and they're like, hey, this is cool. I like that it's here. I'll go to chapel every now and then. But it wasn't necessarily a deal breaker. And then you have students who come and maybe identify as a different faith, or maybe they came for a strong academic program who don't necessarily take part in some of these Christian aspects of Hope's campus. So wherever you fall on that spectrum, just know there's going to be a home for you at Hope. I also want to talk about this idea of safe and significant spaces. And essentially what this is these are spaces and communities on campus for you to explore your identity, but also other identities as well too. Maybe that exists through our Center for Diversity and Inclusion. They have a standalone space on campus that houses a lot of our multicultural student organizations, like our Latinx student organization, our Black Student Union, our Asian American Student Association, you name it. We also have specific groups that are tied to gender and sexuality identities. So PRISM, which is our LGBTQ+ student organization. And then we have some residential opportunities for this too. So one program that I really love to highlight is called the Phelps Scholars Program. And this is essentially like a res college, if you've ever heard of that. So there's three components. There's a residential piece. All of the students who are part of the Phelps Scholars Program live in the same residence hall. There's an academic component. They all take the same first year seminar class, which every student at Hope has to take, but they take one that's specifically focused on multicultural life on campus and beyond. And then there's also an experiential component too. So they're traveling to Dearborn to go to a mosque. They travel to Chicago to attend Barack Obama's home church in the Chicagoland area. They do events for Chinese New Year. They do Day of the Dead events. All these things to help students develop these cultural competencies, to understand their own cultures, but also cultures beyond their own too, and to have really intentional dialogue on that. I think this program is awesome. I wish every student would take part in this program, which is why I talk about it to every student. But I think it kind of ties together this conversation of finding these communities and these spaces on campus where you can have some intentional dialogue around identity. Transitioning away from some of these identity and affinity groups, I want to talk a little bit about athletics, traditions, student groups. So first off, athletics. I like talking about athletics at Hope because I think, just like I talked about us being a top tier research institution in the context of this small liberal arts college, I think it's the same for athletics, right? We've got Division I athletic feel in this Division III small liberal arts package. So for example, we have a historic rivalry with Calvin College. We've been featured on a lot of top 10 lists with schools like Michigan, Ohio State, UNC Duke. And we're there as a Division III school, which is pretty cool. If you want to go see a Hope Calvin basketball game, students literally have to camp out the night before tickets are released in order to get tickets, which is pretty neat. We have an awesome student section called the Dude Crew that's at our men's and women's basketball games, our volleyball games. Really, really cool, fun student section. And then we've got a robust athletics offering, football, soccer, lacrosse, you name it. Now, you may be like me. I love sports. I played basketball through high school, but pretty quickly realized there was not a future for me in the NBA. And I'm also not really good at any other sport besides basketball. So maybe you take part in our intramurals, right? And for me, when I played basketball, I'd be in the more competitive league because that was something I'd always play. But if I wanted to do like inner tube water polo, which is basically all the fun of water polo without the hard work, I like to be in the less competitive leagues. I was more there for fun. Lots of ways to stay plugged in and involved if athletics is something you're looking for in your college experience. I also want to talk a little bit about tradition. Now, if you can see this slide, it probably looks slightly terrifying. Definitely requires some explanation here. So we have a couple really cool long-standing traditions at Hope. One is called the Pull and one is called Niker. The Pull is one of the oldest college traditions in the country. It's over a century over a century old. Wow, struggling to frame that. Over a century old. And at its base, it's a tug of war competition between first year and second year students, with third year and fourth year students serving as coaches. But as you can see from this photo, it's a lot more than tug of war. They literally dig trenches on either side of a lake, and they tug for sometimes hours until there is a winner. They train for a month. Super intense. It was not something a Skyler wanted to sink his teeth into as far as being a puller, but I always went and watched because it's such a cool tradition. The whole campus goes. Really, really fun. And then we have another competition that's close to 100 years old called Nykirk, which is a competition in song, oration, and play. So if you're not about getting into a trench and tugging on a rope for hours on end, and maybe song, oration, play, that sounds more up your alley. Maybe that's the tradition you want to take part in. All right, so I'm curious. We talked a little bit about traditions, athletics. We also have a robust offering of student groups, over 80 student groups and organizations. You name it, it's there. We talked about intramurals. I was involved in the male a cappella group. I did a lot of theater. We have an improv group. We have an outdoors club. We have a knitting club. Literally, you name it, it's probably on campus. So I'm curious, Lorena, Sarah, are there any things that you're like, man, this is something I really hope to get involved in college? Or anything that, based on what we've been talking about, you're like, yeah, that sounds fun. I want to do that.
I know we talked about the faith life, like that's something for me that's like a deciding factor. So I think that's like, it's like comforting to know that they have that option open for students. And yeah, that's what I have to say.
Yeah, that's awesome. And certainly, like I said, if that's something you're looking for, you're going to find it in so many ways. I'll in my follow-up to you, Lorena, I'll send you can actually live stream our chapel services right now since they're all virtual. So you can get kind of a taste for that. But contemporary worship music, literally over 100 Bible studies on campus that you could join. Yeah, it's a big part of who we are. And certainly if that's what you're looking for, you're going to find a really vibrant community for that and a lot of cool ways to get plugged in.
I'm glad to know that I'm not like going to be sacrificing anything. So, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add about that. Or
Yeah, well, Sarah, I'm curious. What are some of the things that you're involved in that you're hoping to stay involved in college?
like more like art classes really, and I'm kind of because I really don't know like what path I'm thinking of, and I'm kind of trying to like experiment like and figure out like what I'm really interested in. So I
Yeah,
kind of yeah, like for example with graphic designing, like communication design, I know that I'm interested in that. But I'm also interested in like other stuff too. So
that's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah, certainly, and I'm a product of that not having to sacrifice when it comes to the arts. I was more of the performing arts, but certainly the same is true with studio art, graphic design, that kind of thing. Tons of ways to get involved extracurricularly and with courses too. We actually had a scholarship for the arts that's open to dancers, actors, singers, instrumentalists, studio artists. I was trying to figure out how to say that. And you can get those awards as a non-major. So, for example, I never had a theater major or minor, and I was a recipient of that Distinguished Artist Award. And the same is true for someone who's involved in studio art. So, even down to the financial resources that are available, those are open to all students, and you don't have to sacrifice. But certainly, I think that's what makes a place like Hope such a good fit for a student like you is you can come to Hope, you can try out a lot of different things, you can get exposed to a lot, and then you can decide on something, but that doesn't mean you have to stop doing all that other stuff that you've fallen in love with as well too. So yeah, just to kind of affirm what you're saying, certainly you can stay plugged into all of that.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Well, should we talk about some of the fun stuff? Admissions, financial aid, scholarships, the real uplifting, I know you don't want to talk about like student groups and that kind of thing. This is the fun stuff. So let's jump into that. So we'll talk a little bit about admissions timeline, then I'll kind of transition into financial and scholarship. And I also want to make sure that I'm, touching on some of the things that will be different this year as a result of, the uncertainty that we're living in our current world. So first off, talking a little bit more to Lorena right now because you are in the thick of this process. But the cool thing, Sarah, is that these dates don't really change a lot. Like I said, this is my 8th recruitment cycle, and even when I've worked for different institutions, these dates stay pretty consistent. So I think you're gonna be able to apply what you're hearing now to next year. So first off, there are 2 ways to apply to Hope College. Common application, and then we also have a Hope College specific application. Doesn't matter which one you use, and in fact, most students I talk to, I encourage them to apply via the common application. If you're not familiar with the common app, the nice thing about the common application is that there's 700 plus schools that are a part of this. So the nice thing is you fill out the bulk of this application one time, you can send it multiple places. The odds that you will be applying to more than one common application school is pretty high. So I'm like, why do a separate application if you don't have to? I think the common app's the way to go. But if you'd like to use our specific application, it's very similar. You can do that as well too. So those are available now. Those applications went live beginning of August. So if you haven't started working on these yet, you can start working on these. Now, the next question I usually get is what are you looking for in this application process? What does this review look like? I don't know how many admissions counselors like me you've talked to, but if you've talked to more than 2, you're probably already starting to hate the word holistic because we all use this holistic review process, right? And it's nice and vague. It doesn't give you a lot of clear information. Well, we also use a holistic review process, and I'm going to try to unpack that a little bit. So first thing we do when I look at an application is I look at the academics, and I look at those in the context of your high school. So a nice thing is when you apply, your counselor is going to send me this form called the school report. It's going to give me all this great information about your high school. That's going to help me understand how well you're performing at your school. Because the fact is your experience in high school probably not the same as another student's experience in high school. So we don't want to penalize you, for example, for not taking advantage of opportunities that you didn't have. We want to see how well you're performing in terms of the context of the opportunities that you have. So I'm going to take a look at your transcript. I'm going to look at, are they taking a tough schedule? Are they performing well? Are they challenging themselves? Do we see a nice upward progression in grades? That kind of thing are some of the things that we're looking for. Another piece of this academic component is testing. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how this is changing, particularly because I'm assuming, at least for sure for you, Lorena, you've probably had a lot of fun trying to take a standardized test this past year. A lot of canceled test dates, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of colleges and universities who are, kind of going back and forth on policies. We have taken or we have adopted a test optional admissions policy for this year. So what that means is if you haven't had a chance to take the ACT or the SAT, that's okay. You can still submit your application and we will give you an admissions decision based on what we have minus the test score. So you can still get admitted to Hope even if you don't submit an ACT or an SAT. Sarah, stay posted. I think this is a policy that we will adopt for subsequent years as well, but it's not for sure yet. But I'll be sure to keep you posted. We'll stay in conversation. But for sure for this coming year, we will be test optional for admissions. Now, hang tight in terms of how this applies to scholarships, that kind of thing. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. So that's the academic piece. And then we're going to look at extracurriculars. Are you having an impact? That may be you're the captain of your sports team, or you're the lead in plays, or you've started a nonprofit organization. That could be that you have to babysit your sibling every day after school because your parents work. Impact means something different to different students. And ultimately, we want to see that you're investing your time in a significant way into something. That's kind of what we're looking for. We do not require letters of recommendation at Hope. So if you're getting those filled out for other institutions, feel free to pass those on, but that's not a requirement. So the last piece then is this essay component. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you'd like some tips on essay writing. I have read a lot of college essays. I think I've become somewhat of a semi-expert in evaluating those, so I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on that. Some key deadlines I want to highlight before we talk financial aid, scholarships. Early notification, that's November 1st. So if you apply by November 1st, what that means is you're going to be in that first round of decision letters that we send out. So if you apply by November 1st, that means you're going to get a decision letter the week of Thanksgiving. So when you're sitting at the Thanksgiving table and it's your turn to say what you're thankful for, you can say, man, I'm so thankful for Skyler, my admissions rep at Hope, because I'm going to Hope College. I know this for sure now. It's great news. If you don't apply by November 1st, that's okay. We're on rolling admissions after that. So after you apply, about a month later, you'll get a decision letter, typically. And then the last key deadline for the admissions timeline is May 1st, National Decision Day. That's just when you call me up and you tell me you're coming to Hope, and I get super excited. Now, before I transition into financial aid and scholarships, does anyone have any questions about the admissions timeline? I do see a couple questions in my chat I'm going to look at too. But any questions on the admissions timeline? All right, awesome. And it looks like second question here is about FAFSA. So that will be answered in just a sec. So, okay, financial aid and scholarship timeline. So you can start working on this form called the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, starting in October. If you're not as familiar with this form, this is a government form. It's a free form. You fill that out with your family, and essentially it's going to take a look at like your family's income, assets, that kind of thing, and it's going to come up with a number called the EFC, the expected family contribution. This is essentially how much the government's saying you should be able to contribute to your college experience. We don't have to go super in the weeds on this, but essentially what we do is we take a look at that EFC, that expected family contribution, and then we look at how much is left, and we make up that difference with a financial aid package. So that might include some merit aid, which we'll talk about in just a second. It might include some Hope grant money, which is money you don't have to pay back, which is really cool. For you both, if you come to Hope right away, I can guarantee you're going to get a $5,000 scholarship because we have an out-of-state scholarship for $5,000 that you get just by being an Illinois resident. So that's pretty cool. And then also we might potentially have some loans that are packaged in there, some work study, that kind of thing. that's going to make up the difference between that expected family contribution and the total cost of attendance for Hope. Now, some real talk right now. If you look at the sticker price of a place like Hope, a private institution, it's going to be higher than like your state institution, that kind of thing. That is not lost on me. So what we call the sticker price, and schools like us tend to have a higher sticker price. It's almost $50,000 a year with room, board, tuition, fees, all that good stuff to attend Hope. Very, very, very few students pay that full amount to go to Hope. We already know right away you're not going to pay the full amount. You got that $5,000 out of state scholarship. Most students do not pay that full amount to attend Hope. So I always tell students, go through the process. And you're going to hear this from a lot of folks, from counselors, that kind of thing. Because really, once you get that financial aid package, that's when you're going to know what the true cost of attendance is for an institution like this. A question about the FAFSA. Is there a deadline for completing the FAFSA? There is not. So you could complete it towards the end of your year and still get a financial aid package from us. Also, in terms of, is it required for merit scholarship consideration? It is not. So our academic scholarships are all based on need, or like these affinity ones. So for example, that out-of-state scholarship, we have a scholarship that's specifically for students who identify as underrepresented population. That all comes from the Common App, Legacy Award, these kind of things. So yeah, none of our academic scholarships or affinity scholarships are based on that financial aid form. Okay, quickly on merited, and I'm watching my time, and I want to make sure I can answer any specific questions y'all have at the end of this. So scholarships, academic scholarships, start at a 3.2 GPA and a 22 ACT or an 1100 SAT. Now, all right, I'm going to tell you, because Lorena, Sarah, I feel like we're friends. I like you both already, so I'm gonna straight talk with you right now. Currently, we have a policy that we still are requiring a test score for scholarship consideration. So even though we're test optional for admissions, as of right now, we still require a test score by February 1st, which would make that December test date, the last day you could take it, to be considered for academic scholarships. Now, until you're otherwise for me, like kind of lock that into your mind. But what I will tell you is we are very close to finalizing a decision to make scholarship decisions without that piece. And I feel pretty confident that's going to happen. Confident enough that I'm saying it to you before we full on locked that in. It's very close to finalizing that. So I don't know Lorena, what your situation has been in terms of being able to take a test score. If you've had an opportunity, if you're planning to retake it and that hasn't happened. But certainly I want to be sympathetic to the fact that it probably hasn't played out the way that you had hoped. And we had hoped, we don't want to require something that's been a barrier for you more so than it is normally. So I will keep posted on that. But that's kind of what that is looking like right now. Any questions on that? I know it's a little bit vague, a little bit talking out of both sides of my mouth, but that's kind of where we're at in this day-to-day world that we're living in. Any questions on that?
So by test score, SAT and ACT?
Correct. Yes, SAT, ACT, and that's the thing, Sarah. For you being a junior, I don't totally know what this will look like for next year yet. Some institutions, and Lorena, for you too, you're probably seeing most institutions have gone test optional for admissions for this year. Some institutions have already committed to doing this for a certain number of subsequent years. Some institutions are like, we're done with it, So I don't know exactly where we're going to land in that conversation yet, but I will for sure keep you posted, Sarah. After probably a little bit later into this year, we'll have a better idea of what that would look like. We will start sending out our packages, scholarship information to you in February. So if you've submitted that FAFSA form, you'll start to get that information by then. No separate application for scholarships. Like I said, affinity awards, academic scholarships, all that's going to be automatic. The only piece is the FAFSA for that financial aid piece. So those are the big deadlines for scholarships. Like I said, scholarships started at 3.2 GPA, 22 right now, 1100. And the range is pretty robust. It starts at $6,000 a year and goes all the way up to $24,000 a year, depending on where you fall in that line. We do have that all outlined right on the scholarship page on our website, so you can take a look at that based on the info that you already have and kind of get an idea of where you might fall. All right, y'all. That's my spiel. I think we did all right on time. We got about 5 minutes left for any specific questions that you all may have. Any questions that I can help to answer? I did see, Noel, you asked about if classes are in person this fall. Currently, we have all of our students on campus, and we're doing somewhat of a hybrid schedule. Some of our courses are offered in person, some are offered online. We've tried to limit the amount of online courses, particularly for our underclassmen, to try to get them as many in-person experiences as possible. But certainly, you know, safety is at the forefront of our minds, like with everyone. So, yeah, doing what we need to do there. That's a good question. Any other specific questions I can help to answer?
I don't have any questions. I think the information that was covered was really helpful for me. So thank you.
That's great. Glad to hear it.
Okay.
Me too.
Beautiful. Well, I want to just quickly go over to this last slide here so you can see my info. That's my email address. That's my cell phone number. Feel free to save both of those. You can call me, text me, email me, however you like to communicate with any questions you may have. Also, some visit information. So like I said, we've got some limited in-person offerings that are available. These are like one-on-one appointments, you know, doing an admissions appointment with someone like me, 6 feet apart, and then a socially distanced campus tour, but an opportunity to actually see campus in person if that's something you feel comfortable with. But then also, like I said, you can schedule the same exact experience virtually. And then also we've got these open houses as well. One is tomorrow. If you are interested and available and you're already like, yeah, I'd love to check that out, go to the hope.edu/hope@home. That'll link you to all of our visit opportunities that are virtual.
Okay.
Beautiful. Well, this was great. Any last things, thoughts, questions? Are you all fired up, ready to go to Hope College now? Noelle too, she's signing up.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to start over.
Degree.
Thanks.
Yes, of course. Thank you all. I'll probably be following up with you, and certainly if any questions come up then, feel free to let me know. But enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the rest of your senior year, okay? And junior year.
Thank you.